Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a truly foundational text, Ibn Khaldun's Muqaddimah. It's this incredible 14th century work, often seen as, well, the birth certificate of sociology and scientific history.
Absolutely. And it's more than just history, isn't it? It's this grand vision. Khaldun wasn't just recording what happened. He wanted the laws behind it all.
So that's our mission today, to explore that framework.
Exactly. His holistic view, how things like social needs, geography, climate, even spirituality are all tangled up together. He argues they govern how human societies rise and fall. It's a massive theory of everything human.
Okay, so where do we start with something that big? Khaldun himself starts with a really basic question, right? Why society? Why do we even need it?
Yes, and his answer isn't the typical philosophical one you might expect, man is a political animal.
No.
No, for Khaldun, it's much more fundamental. It comes down to sheer physical necessity, survival.
Okay, so let's unpack that necessity. He argues the individual human just isn't equipped to survive alone.
Precisely. On two fronts. The first one is basic sustenance, getting food.
Right, and his example here is just brilliant in its, well, its groundedness.
It really is.
Yeah.
He takes the simplest possible requirement, getting enough food for one person for just one day. Let's say a bit of wheat.
Okay.
Then he walks you through turning that wheat into bread. And it immediately shows how impossible that is for one person acting alone.
Because it's not just planting and harvesting.
Not at all. You have to grind it, then knead it, then bake it. And think about what that requires.
Tools.
Exactly. Tools for every step. Grinding stones, maybe metal tools for farming or cutting, pots for mixing, an oven.
Which means you need the people who make those tools.
Right. You need a blacksmith for the metal parts, a carpenter for wooden things, a potter for the vessels or oven bricks. And none of them can do their job without the others providing materials or other tools.
So one person trying to make one day's bread would basically starve before they even finished making the rudimentary tools needed.
That's exactly his point. It's physically insufficient. But, and this is the key, through cooperation, the combined effort of a group can satisfy the needs of many more people than just the individuals involved.
It's an argument for the efficiency of specialization and cooperation.
Fundamentally, cooperation isn't just nice, it's the precondition for human life to even get started, according to Khaldun. Without it, we literally can't materialize.
Okay, so that covers the food problem, the internal need. What's the second necessity driving social organization?
Defense. Facing the outside world. Khaldun is very clear-eyed about aggression being natural in living things.
He mentions animals, right? Comparing humans to them.
Yes, what he calls dumb animals. Horses, lions, elephants. They have natural advantages. Incredible strength, specialized limbs, horns, claws, thick hides for protection.
And humans in their natural state lack all of that. We're physically quite weak compared to many animals.
We are. So how did we survive and thrive? Khaldun says God gave humans two crucial things: the ability to think and the hand. Thought is what separates us. It allows the hand to develop crafts.
And crafts create tools that substitute for those natural weapons.
Exactly. Technology as an existential requirement. Lances replace horns, swords act like claws, shields are like thicker skin. He even references the physician Galen on this point about the usefulness of the body's parts and how humans compensate.
So the logic is inescapable. Without cooperation, you can't make the tools for defense. You can't get enough food. You can't protect yourself from animals.
Or, crucially, from other humans. He includes that too. Without cooperation for both sustenance and defense, the human species just wouldn't make it. It would vanish.
Therefore, social organization isn't a choice. It's baked into our survival needs.
It's absolutely necessary.
But, okay, once you have that social organization, a new problem immediately pops up, doesn't it?
It does. The internal problem. We've cooperated to create these tools and weapons for defense. But we all still have that inherent human aggression.
And now everyone has access to the weapons.
Right, so cooperation solves one problem, it creates another. How do you stop people from using those tools against each other? You need something more.
Which Khaldun calls
A restraining influence. This is where authority comes in. Royal authority, specifically.
And again, this isn't presented as just a good idea or one political system among others.
No, he defines it as a natural and absolutely necessary quality of human society. Something or someone has to dominate and hold power to prevent mutual destruction.
It's a functional requirement of the system he's described.
Yes. And he observes similar, though simpler, structures in nature like bees or locusts having a leader. But he's careful to say theirs is instinctual, whereas human authority involves thought, administration, and force.
This brings him into dialogue, or maybe even conflict, with earlier philosophers. He takes issue with the idea that you need divine law or prophecy for this restraining influence to work.
He does. Some philosophers argue that prophecy was logically necessary for order. Khaldun says, well, let's look at the evidence. He argues that rules created by a human authority figure, especially when backed by strong group solidarity, his famous concept of ababiyya and the power to enforce them, are perfectly sufficient for society to exist and function.
And his proof is historical?
Yes. He points to civilizations like the Magians, the ancient Persians. He understood them as lacking a divinely revealed book like the Torah, Gospel, or Quran.
Yet they built huge empires, complex societies, lasting monuments.
Exactly. Their existence and success prove, for Khaldun, that human life and civilization can materialize and persist without prophecy being the source of law and order. Prophecy might be mandated by religious law, he'd say, but it's not a logical prerequisite for social organization itself.
That's a really important distinction. He's grounding his argument in observed history, not just abstract reasoning.
That's what makes him so revolutionary. Observation first.
Okay, so the foundation is set. Humans need society for survival, and society needs authority to function. Now, Khaldun zooms out, right? He puts this whole human drama onto a world map. Part 2, the world stage.
Yes, and he draws on the geographical knowledge of his time, from the Greeks like Ptolemy to contemporary Arab geographers. He accepts the Earth is a sphere, mostly covered by water. The surrounding sea
And the habitable part.
is the bit where the water has receded. He sees it as roughly circular, maybe covering a quarter of the globe's surface.
And he divides this habitable world into zones, the 7 Iqlim.
That's right, 7 zones running east to west, parallel to the equator. The first zone is nearest the equator in the south, and they number up to the 7th in the far north, around 64 degrees latitude, where things get too cold for settlement.
And this division isn't just descriptive geography, it's fundamental to his whole theory. Why?
Because it's based on climate, which is determined by the sun's angle. And climate, for Khaldun, dictates almost everything else.
So where does civilization flourish according to this model?
He observes it's concentrated in the middle zones. It's quite sparse in the first and second zones, the hottest south, and basically disappears beyond the 7th in the extreme north.
Why the extremes? What's the mechanism?
In the south, zones 1 and 2 near the equator, sun is directly overhead at the zenith twice a year. This creates intense excessive heat and, crucially, a parching dryness.
And that dryness affects everything.
Pretty much. He believed it hinders the very power of generation. It limits the growth of plants, the flourishing of animal life, even the formation of minerals, all because of the lack of moisture. Life is just harder, resources scarcer.
And the extreme cold in the north has a similar limiting effect, presumably.
Yes, for opposite reasons. So the sweet spot, where you get a temperate mix of heat and cold, is between the 3rd and 6th zones. That's where you find the conditions for abundant life and therefore complex civilization.
Before we get into the character of the people in those zones, he gives us a kind of tour of the known world through its seas and rivers. It shows the scope of their understanding.
It does. He mentions the Mediterranean, the Roman or Syrian Sea. He knows how it connects to the Black Sea through the Straits of Constantinople, and about the Adriatic, the Gulf of Venice.
And the seas vital for trade further east and south.
Yes, the huge Indian Ocean, he calls it the Chinese or Abyssinian Sea, and the Red Sea, the Sea of Al-Kulzum. And here he adds a fascinating detail.
What's that?
He notes the long-standing desire of rulers, going way back, to cut a canal through the land, separating the Red Sea from the Mediterranean.
Wow. So even then, the idea of a Suez Canal was active? That really highlights the geographical constraints on trade and power he's thinking about.
Absolutely. The shape of the world, the waterways, dictate economic potential. He also mentions the Caspian Sea, noting it's unconnected, and then the major rivers.
The lifelines of these temperate zones.
The Nile, originating from the mountain of the Kumar, the Euphrates and Tigris, the heartland rivers starting in Armenia and eastern Anatolia, and the Oxus River in Central Asia flowing into the Aral Sea. These waterways map directly onto the major population centers he's analyzing.
Okay, so this detailed geography isn't just backdrop. It sets the stage for his next big argument, which is probably the most famous and maybe controversial part of the Muqaddimah. Part 3, how climate shapes us.
Deeply shapes us, our bodies, our character, our entire way of life. He starts with the ideal.
The temperate zones, 3 through 6, but especially the 4th.
Exactly. The 4th zone is the most temperate, the perfect balance. And the people living there, he includes the Maghreb, North Africa, Syria, Iraq, parts of India, China, Spain, even the European Christians, they exhibit moderation.
Moderation in what sense?
In their physical build, their skin color, their character traits, their overall living conditions, everything is balanced, not extreme.
And what does their civilization look like? What are the outward signs?
Well-built houses, using durable materials like stone, often showing sophisticated craftsmanship. They develop and use the best tools and implements, which points to advanced, specialized crafts.
And economically?
Crucially, they use precious metals, gold and silver for trade. Their economies are more complex. These are also the regions where sciences, arts, and intellectual pursuits flourish. Temperance enables complexity.
Okay, that's the ideal. Now, the flip side, the intemperate extremes. Zones 1 and 2 in the south, 6 and 7 in the north.
He says the people there are farther removed from being temperate in pretty much all aspects. Their lives are dictated by the harshness of the environment.
So basic survival needs dominate.
Completely. Their buildings might just be clay huts or woven reeds. Their food is simple, like dura grain or wild herbs. Clothing could be leaves or animal skins. Trade, if it exists, uses basic materials, copper, iron, maybe just skins bartered. No gold or silver economies here.
And what about their character? According to Khaldun, this is where it gets, well, potentially problematic for modern readers.
It definitely is. He suggests their character is closer to that of dumb animals. Now, his reasoning is environmental. The constant struggle for bare survival in these harsh climates leaves little energy or opportunity for developing refined culture, complex social rules, or abstract thought.
He gives specific examples.
He mentions reports, possibly exaggerated, of people in the first zone, Deep South, living in caves, eating herbs, being very isolated and savage. He applies similar logic to the inhabitants of the extreme north, like the Slavs, shaped by excessive cold.
But you mentioned he adds a nuance about religion.
Yes, that's important. He observes that some groups in these extreme zones who adopted organized religion, he mentions Christian Abyssinians and Muslim groups in West Africa like the Mali or Takrur, seem to develop more complex societies than their neighbors.
So culture or religion can potentially override the harshest environmental determinism.
It seems he allows for that possibility, especially for groups near the temperate zones who might have more contact and influence. It suggests climate is a powerful force, but perhaps not an absolute dictator of destiny.
This focus on climate leads directly to his famous explanation for skin color. He directly refutes the common story about Noah cursing Ham.
Yes, he calls that a silly story, completely ignoring the actual physical effects of heat and cold. He wants a scientific explanation based on the environment.
What is his mechanism then? How does climate cause skin color?
He links it to the composition of the air and vapors influenced by temperature. In the extreme south, the intense heat, that parching dryness, affects the air itself. This hot, dry air composition over generations causes the skin to become black.
And for white skin in the north?
The opposite. Excessive cold, lack of direct sun. This leads to white complexion, often with blue eyes, blonde hair, less body hair. It's a direct physiological response to the prevailing atmospheric conditions.
It's quite remarkable, a purely environmental explanation centuries before modern genetics. How did he try to prove it?
Through observation of migration. He claims that if people from the hot south move north into the temperate zone, over generations, their descendants' skin will gradually become lighter. And the reverse happens if people from temperate or cold zones move south.
So for him, it's settled. Color is conditioned by the air.
Unequivocally. It's a powerful example of him prioritizing observable material causes over inherited myths or theological explanations for physical differences.
And he doesn't stop at physical traits. Part 4 connects climate to socioeconomics, but also directly to emotional temperament.
Yes, he links character directly back to the heat and cold's effect on the body's spirit.
Let's focus on the heat example first. He discusses the character of people in hot regions, specifically mentioning Negroes. What traits does he attribute to them?
He describes them as characterized by levity, excitability, and great emotionalism. He notes they're quick to dance, seem less concerned about the future, and even uses the term stupid, which is, of course, deeply problematic.
Extremely. But what's his explanation for these perceived traits? How does climate supposedly cause this?
He uses the medical philosophical concept of the animal spirit. The idea is that feelings like joy relate to the expansion of this spirit in the body, while sadness comes from its contraction.
Okay.
So, people in the hot zone constantly breathe hot air. This heat expands the air in vapors and therefore expands their animal spirit. This physical state of expansion makes them naturally prone to quick joy, gladness, and excitability. It's a direct thermal effect on their temperament.
A kind of climate-based psychology. And he sees something similar in coastal areas.
Yes, because the reflection of sun off the water also increases heat and light. He uses Egypt as a key example.
Oh, so.
He describes Egyptians as generally dominated by joyfulness, levity, and disregard for the future. He points to their habit of buying food daily, not storing provisions, as evidence.
And he contrasts this with
The people of Fez in Morocco. Fez is inland in a colder, hilly region. He describes them as sad and gloomy, overly concerned with the future, hoarding grain for years, even when they have plenty.
So, hot environment, expanded spirit, leads to spontaneity and less worry. Cold environment, contracted spirit, leads to caution and anxiety.
That's his argument, a direct link between climate, physiology, and dominant cultural moods or character traits.
This focus on environment and physiology leads him to another really fascinating counterintuitive point, the paradox of frugality versus abundance.
Yes, this is powerful. He observes that people living in harsh conditions, like desert nomads who eat very simply, maybe just milk and meat, without grains or rich seasonings, are actually better off in some ways.
Better off how?
Healthier bodies, clearer complexions, sharper minds. He finds them superior in physique and intellect compared to people living in fertile areas with abundant food.
That seems backwards. Why would less food and variety make you healthier and smarter?
His explanation uses the humoral theory of medicine, common then. Too much food, especially rich food with lots of moisture and variety, generates pernicious superfluous matters in the body. Bad humors.
Like the body gets clogged up with excess.
Exactly. It creates corrupt, putrid humors that the body struggles to deal with. This internal corruption then manifests outwardly.
How?
In physical ways, less handsome features, perhaps bulkiness, but also mentally duller minds, slower thinking, carelessness, stupidity, essentially, rising from physical excess.
He uses an analogy with animals here too, doesn't he?
He does. Compare a wild gazelle, lean and fast, living on sparse vegetation, with a domesticated sheep or goat, well-fed in a pasture. The domestic animal, he says, is often duller, less agile, physically compromised by the easy abundance and the resulting corrupt humors. Humans are the same. Hardship purifies.
And this physical state, driven by diet, connects back to their spiritual lives.
Directly, those frugal desert dwellers. They're generally more religious, more ready for worship and spiritual contemplation. Their bodies and minds aren't clouded by excess.
Whereas the people in luxurious towns
Tend to be less religious, more focused on worldly pleasures. He links consuming lots of meat, rich seasonings, fine wheat directly to a kind of spiritual dullness or carelessness. Physical comfort breeds spiritual complacency, in his view.
It's a compelling idea that struggle sharpens the soul as well as the body, and this has very practical consequences too, especially during hard times like famine.
Immensely practical. He observes that people used to abundance, say, in prosperous cities like Suez or Cairo, die much faster when famine hits.
Why? What's the mechanism there?
Their bodies are accustomed to that constant intake of rich food and moisture. When it's suddenly withdrawn, their systems can't cope. Their stomachs, used to being full and stimulated by seasonings, essentially dry out and collapse quickly. They're victims of their prior luxury.
But those used to scarcity.
Like the desert Arabs living on dates or barley or others subsisting simply. Their bodies are already adapted. They don't have those corrupt humors from excess. Their systems are cleaner, tougher, more resilient. They can withstand the shock of famine much better.
He even gives examples of extreme fasting to prove the body's adaptability based on custom.
Yes, he mentions seeing people fast for 40 days or more, and stories of people, women in particular, who supposedly live for years with almost no food. For him, this proves that habit and custom dictate what the body truly needs. Adaptability is key to survival.
Okay, we've covered a massive amount of ground. From basic survival needs to geography's constraints, to climate shaping body and mind, to diet influencing health and piety. Now for the final part, part 5, Khaldun takes us into the realm of the spirit, of supernatural perception. How does he connect this to everything else?
He sees it as the pinnacle of a continuous hierarchy of existence. It all fits together.
What's the hierarchy?
It starts with the basic elements: earth, water, air, fire. Then you move up through the celestial spheres, then into the created world. Minerals, then plants, then animals.
And humans are at the top of the animal level.
Yes, distinguished by the power of thought. But the hierarchy doesn't stop there. Above humans are the angels, who are pure intellect, pure perception, without bodies.
So the human soul is uniquely positioned.
Exactly. It's connected downwards to the physical body and its senses, but its ultimate potential, its natural inclination, is to ascend upwards, to free itself from dependence on the body and reach for pure, active intellection to become more like the angels.
And he thinks different people have different capacities for this ascent, based on their souls.
Yes, he describes three basic kinds of human souls, based on their natural strength and ability to perceive beyond the physical senses.
Okay, what's the first type?
The lowest level, in terms of spiritual perception, are the scholars. Their souls are naturally, let's say, less powerful in this specific way. They're largely limited to perception through the body's senses and the kind of reasoning that works with sense data, what he calls the primary intelligibilia. Their knowledge comes through the material world.
Then the next level up.
These are the saints or mystics. They have stronger souls, naturally prepared for a different kind of knowing. They can achieve intuitive, direct inward perception gnosis, or divine knowledge without needing the bodily senses as intermediaries. They get glimpses of that higher, angelic realm.
And the highest level.
That belongs to the prophets. Their souls are exceptionally powerful, uniquely constituted to actually exchange their human state for a state of pure angelicality, at least temporarily and at will.
This is the state of revelation.
Yes. This is when they can receive direct divine communication, God's essential speech. But Khaldun stresses this isn't easy. It's physically wrenching. He cites accounts of the Prophet Muhammad experiencing intense physical symptoms like choking, heavy sweating. It's like the soul has to forcefully slob off its humanity to bridge that gap to purely spiritual.
And prophecies proven by miracles, things others can't do. But Khaldun gives the Quran a special status here.
A unique status. He argues the Quran is the greatest miracle because it's fundamentally different. It doesn't need external proof.
Why not?
Because the message is the miracle. Its linguistic structure, its eloquence, its content, it's inimitable, impossible for humans to replicate. So the Quran itself is simultaneously the divine claim and the wondrous proof of that claim. It's self-evident.
And he contrasts this with other scriptures like the Torah or the Gospels.
Yes, his understanding was that Moses or Jesus received the divine ideas or meanings during revelation, but then expressed those ideas in their own human words, the language of their time.
So those texts, while divinely inspired, don't have that same quality of literal verbal inimitability.
Exactly. That unique quality, Ijaz, belongs only to the Quran, revealed word for word. And for Khaldun, this self-evident miraculousness is why it was so powerful and attracted so many followers.
Okay, so that's the highest form of perception. What about more common or perhaps less reliable forms, like dreams?
He sees dream vision as a natural capacity of the human soul. When you sleep, the interference from the physical senses lessens. The soul gets a chance to perceive things directly, to glimpse forms of events from the spiritual world.
Are all dreams meaningful then?
Not necessarily in the same way. Sometimes the glimpse is clear, that's seen as directly from God. Other times it's more symbolic, allegorical, maybe mediated by angels and needs interpretation. He mentions the Prophet Muhammad describing dream vision as just a small fraction of prophecy, like a 46th or 70th part, indicating its lower ranks.
And then there's soothsaying, kahana. How does that fit in?
That's much lower down. He sees soothsayers as having weaker souls that aspire to supernatural knowledge but can't reach it purely. They need external aids, chanting rhymed prose, looking at bones or water, things like that.
And the source of their information.
He attributes it to devils or jinn. It's an imperfect, unreliable connection, mixing truth with falsehood, because they're trying to grasp the spiritual while still tied to their senses. They can't make the leap properly. So fundamentally untrustworthy.
And finally, he debunks some other practices entirely. Astrology.
Dismissed completely. He calls it guesswork and conjecture. He sees no valid connection between stars and human destiny, no genuine spiritual perception involved, just assumptions.
What about geomancy, drawing figures in sand?
It's also dismissed. Popular, he notes, but basically arbitrary notions and wishful thinking. His conclusion is firm. You can't learn or practice your way into true supernatural perception through some craft or technique.
Oh.
Only those whose souls are naturally fitted for it, who experience that physical disengagement from the body, sometimes marked by yawning or stretching, he notes, can genuinely access the world of the spirit.
Wow. We've really covered the spectrum of Khaldun's thought in the Muqaddimah, from the absolute basic need to cooperate to bake bread.
Right, all the way through geography's impact, climate shaping character, and even physiology.
The effects of diet on health, mind, and even piety.
And culminating in this hierarchy of souls reaching toward angelic perception and prophecy. It's immense.
It really is.
Yeah,
So to synthesize, Khaldun gives us this incredibly integrated framework.
completely. Geography sets the stage for economics. Economics and diet shape character. Character influences the type of society, its stability, its spiritual potential, and it all stems from that initial divine plan, or maybe just natural necessity, that humans must organize to survive.
It's a science of human existence, really. Grounded in observation, but with this overarching structure. Okay, let's leave our listeners with a final thought, something to chew on.
Right.
Khaldun argued powerfully that human nature, being aggressive, needs the restraint of royal authority, basically, force for society to even function. Yet he also argued that the highest truth, the Quran, was compelling precisely because it was self-evident, requiring no external proof or force.
That's a fascinating tension right there.
It is. So, here's the question for you to consider. If a truth or an argument is truly self-evident, clear as day, does that clarity alone guarantee its acceptance and its power to create order? Or does human nature, the very nature Khaldun described as needing restraint, mean that even the most obvious truths still ultimately rely on authority, on group feeling, perhaps even on force, to overcome our inherent flaws and actually govern us?
Does the greatest truth need the greatest proof, or does it need the strongest enforcement? Or maybe somehow both.
Something to think about.
Pardon?
That's all for this deep dive.